Our RSA's title is Responsibility versus Destiny, based on the extract from page 22 and 23. Done by Won Jun and Stephanie. In our extract, there are three main characters appearing: Okonko, Noakibi, and Onoka. From the previous pages, we learned that Noakibi is a very wealthy man. On the other hand, we can see his generosity from our extract saying, "I've learned to be stingy with my yams, but I can trust you," and he gave Okonko twice 400 yams. We also know that he's a wise man by quoting his ancestors' words, "You can tell a ripe corn by its look." Next is Unoka, who was Okonko's father. He was actually a very irresponsible man in his family. He was a lazy, improvident, and was incapable of thinking about tomorrow by quoting from page 4. Lastly, it's Okonko. He was the head of his family, as his father was irresponsible. He never wanted to be like his father Unoka. In summary, he was a responsible and diligent man. Now let's talk about the plot. The community that they were living was called Umuofia. Noakibi gave twice the amount of yams that Okonko asked for because he knew that Okonko was a responsible person whom he could trust. Those yams really helped Okonko to start building a barn. And here's Onoka. The evidence of his laziness foreshadows Okonko's life in the future, as the author wrote in the extract. From the previous pages, we learned that Okonko became the opposite of his irresponsible father because he feared to resemble his father. The author wrote he watched the sky all day for signs of rain clouds and lay awake all night from page 22. He also prayed that the rain might fall in the night. This shows that Okonko was responsible for his crops and their growth, whereas his father never succeeded in growing crops. Now let's talk about the literary devices. And of course, the author used yam as a symbol many times in the book, as well as our extract. We found the quote that "Yams, the king of crops, was a man's crop," which symbolizes responsibility of a man. The author used the symbol of yam as manliness to describe that manliness was what helped Okonko to become a more responsible person from page 28, which again relates to the theme of responsibility. The next literary device that was used was a simile. He referred the strong sunlight to the hot coals. The author used simile to describe the catastrophic drought in a more extreme way. Hot coals creates a better image for the audience on how hot the ground would have been in that situation, and killed all the yams and withered them. His simile was used to emphasize the idea of destiny, which is the power of nature. That sometimes in our lives we can't control everything. We have to cope with it or find a solution to overcome the situation. Next literary device was a hyperbole. The quote "he has learned to fly without perching" is an exaggeration and emphasis from Noakibi, because people can't literally fly. This is an emphasis on the point that people adapt to other people's learning. We could find a similar quote from Neil's team's extract that used hyperbole. Both of our quotes relate to the theme of responsibility, that it is people's responsibility to get what they want, because people will trust you more if you are proven responsible. The next literary device that we're going to discuss is the metaphor. From this quote, you can tell a ripe corn by its looks. A corn is a metaphor that describes a person's character or responsibility. By using a metaphor, the author is expressing his feeling on Okonko that he was a trustworthy man. The last literary device is another metaphor, which the author used to express the idea of destiny. Rain is a metaphor for the nature, which is the destiny that the humans can't prevent from happening. Also, rain is a meaning of hope, because Okonko desperately wanted it to rain for his crops after the drought. Now let's talk about the links to the author's talk. In an open discussion with the BBC, Chinua Achebe received questions from the audience. One of them asked, "Why didn't you put footnotes on the book to help understanding for the readers?" And Achebe answered by saying, "I think it is the responsibility of the readers to put in extra effort to find out the meanings." Achebe believes that making an extra effort, for example, looking up meanings of difficult vocabularies in the dictionary, in order to understand the book, it is the responsibility that the reader should take. Another audience asked, what was the moral from the book? Achebe replied, "Just enjoy the book." Achebe is emphasizing on the fact that readers should be able to identify what the author is trying to say by themselves by becoming an independent and responsible reader of the book. Now let's talk about our big picture. From our extract, destiny refers to something that we humans cannot change, which is the nature. The quote, "The earth burned like hot coals and roasted all the yams that had been sown," is a very good example that shows the theme of destiny from this extract. Another great quote is this one, "The drought continued for 8 market weeks, and the yams were killed." Therefore, we can conclude that the destiny in this extract can be referred to the drought, season, and the weather, which are those things that man can't control. About the responsibility, we can see that Okonkwo was a very responsible man for his property, which were crops. However, he was also very responsible with his family because he had to step up for it as the only son from the family. By referring to the quote, and what made it worse in Okonkwo's case is that he had to support his mother and 2 sisters from his meager harvest. And from Natasha's extract, we can see how responsible Okonkwo was by being able to grow prosperous land. Lastly, let's talk about the fight between responsibility and destiny. Our extract shows the struggle of Okonkwo as a human in front of the nature. Okonkwo tries his best to step up and be responsible. However, the author is telling us that sometimes things in our lives depend on destiny and that we need to understand that not everything could go well according to what we wish. There are 2 quotes that show the fight very well. The first quote is that he watched the sky all day for signs of rain clouds and lay awake all night. The next quote is that he had tried to protect them from the smoldering earth by making rings of thick sisal leaves around them. And that was our RSA on destiny versus responsibility. What does the novel say about that fight?